Hey guys, welcome to the Phoenix Project. Today, I'm talking to Sarah Da Silva. We'll be talking about mental health and just getting in depth with what she does in the mental health space. But hey, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here. It's really nice to have a good chat about everything today.
Sweet as. But yeah, how you been today anyway?
Yeah, good. I've just been just getting into my week, organizing myself and thinking about what I've been wanting to do creatively because we're still in lockdown here.
So have you thought of any different ideas you want to do with the creative space?
Yeah, I've been just like wanting to try new things. So I'm just trying embroidery, trying painting, trying because I used to draw mandalas, but I was like, I want to try something new. Um, Making friendship bracelets, gardening, planting some seedlings, springtime, and cooking some things from scratch. Just been trying lots of new things just to fill up my time. It's been fun. It's been really nice.
No, sweet. So
Have you been doing anything like that when you were in lockdown?
sorry, what was that?
Did you do anything new when you were in lockdown as well?
Um, yeah, think about it. I probably at that sort of time I don't really do it anymore, but I did a little bit of drawing, like a
Yeah.
little bit of drawing that I've I've never been into really drawing and stuff like that. But once when I was in lockdown, I sort of got into that a bit, and now I sort of every so often I'll just draw random things. I'm not really the best drawer, but I sort of just copy something like try and copy someone else's drawing and do that sort of stuff. So that's something I think that's one thing I do more often now since lockdown. But then at the same time, we haven't had the lockdown as much as
Mm,
yeah you have down there. So
yeah.
I think I'm trying to think the amount of lockdown, like the lockdown. I think I was only in a lockdown for out of the whole time. I think maybe just over, maybe just under 2 months. So,
Okay, yeah, not
so,
too long, but
so.
it's pretty long, like
Oh yeah,
considering.
oh yeah. It's still long, but those were in different, separated. So I think the first one was like I think 3 4 weeks, and then we had that other. I think we had another little one after that. But
Yeah.
But yeah, so with let's get into some questions. Um, so with what you do, like the posts you put up on Instagram and other things you do with like psychology and um your coaching, what have some things that you have changed lately that you put up since Corona, like since a year ago when Corona started? What are some things that you've been doing differently?
Um. Uh. I guess just reiterating like what's really most important to me in that time. Um. And just realizing like, okay, well, the world's starting to change. We're all learning a new way of living. And lockdown wasn't really a new thing to me, I guess, when it came around, because when I got sick, it was 2019,
Oh,
and
okay. Yeah.
I had just recently been diagnosed with breast cancer. So when I got sick, I went into this crazy, personal lockdown where I had to hide away from society because I was immunocompromised. But that whole time, I was very sick. So I didn't have much time to do things that I enjoy or, enjoy life much or anything like that. So I just started making a mental note of all the things that I wanted to do, and then I started making them happen when I got better. But the main thing was when I was in the middle of my sickness, I realized how much was just being taken from me energetically by the people in my life. So I had this realization that I had been giving away so much of my energy and basically been taken advantage of and used in many ways, even by people that mattered to me, like family. So it was like, you know what, I need to take some space and I need to really figure out who I am and like what do I want and all this stuff outside of what everyone else in my life wanted. And that actually I realized wasn't okay to some of the people in my life. They told me outright that it wasn't okay, like that I had to be there for them even though I wasn't well. And that made me see that even you know when you think in situations where you're lacking power, you think, oh, even if I was on my deathbed or even if I was in a really disadvantaged situation, maybe then they would see and maybe they would have a bit more compassion, a bit more empathy. But in that situation, they didn't. So
Yeah.
I just decided, okay, there's something not quite right going on here. And I figured out that there was a bit of manipulation at play. So that's what made me want to start, because I was a coach before that, but that's what made me want to start looking at the darker sides of like manipulation and things like that, because these are the things that put us in relationships without knowing it, relationships that can harm us and that can, be detrimental to our mental health. So that's what started my journey of like starting this page. I had a page before that, but I was only talking about things that were very surface level on the mental health sphere, just, talking about fun mental health tips and making it all colorful and sugar coated, But then I was like, that's not the reality of what it was. So I decided I'm just going to start fresh and I'm going to talk about the real stuff, the nitty gritty stuff. And that gained a lot more traction than the sugar coated stuff. So I thought, yeah, there's something to this. A lot of people want to know about this stuff.
No, sweet. So how's the journey been since you've gotten in depth with putting those type of content up on your page?
How has the what? Sorry.
How's your journey? How's things changed since you've been putting posts up like that?
Yeah, it actually helped me so much because it was I think it was New Year's Eve 2021, like coming into 2021. I had reached out after being no contact while I was sick to my parent, who I had decided, like, I need to be no contact with you because I just need to get better. Like, I can't be there for everyone. I just got to look after myself. So I went no contact with a lot of people. And then I kind of reached out around Christmas time and that was ignored. And I actually went into this like really deep spiral of like self-hatred and like questioning my worth and like, that feeling. It's hard to explain when someone rejects you. It's easy to explain how much it hurts, but when it's a parent, it's really, really hard to explain unless you actually experienced that kind of rejection from a parent. So that's what I experienced, and it put me in this deep spiral of real low depression to the point of like not seeing the point of my life or not even wanting to live in a way, because I just didn't see like what's the point when your parent doesn't even love you or doesn't even care about you. But it also motivated me in an anger kind of way. It brought a lot of anger inside me and made me go, you know what, there's so many people in the world that feel this way. And I have this experience where I've been a coach for a long time. I'm studying psychology. I know how this works. And I know that it's not about me, although I feel angry and emotional about it. It's important to let the rest of the world know that there's things that like this that go on. And as soon as I started sharing, I felt scared at first, like, oh, what am I doing? Like telling my story, these things that happened to me, I felt quite ashamed. I was like, what are people going to say about me if they come across my page and they read these stories? What are people going to think? Are people going to call me a victim? Blah, 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 blah. But then I started to feel quite empowered because I noticed the response. And the response was, you're not alone. Like, I've experienced the same thing. And people telling me their stories and messaging me going, thank you so much for telling your story, because wow, I finally, for the first time in my life, know that I wasn't the only person who experienced that. And that gave me such a sense of like, oh, this is just my purpose. It's so important to be sharing this, because if I have enough, like, I see that whole cancer journey as my journey to becoming fearless. And if I have enough fearlessness in myself to help others become fearless as well, I feel like that's my superpower that I need to share with the world. So it was a journey of learning to deal with not only the stories and the negative effects of what came up, but also share how I've learned to heal from it, and how the whole journey in itself of sharing that my personal story has also taught me how to stand up for myself even more, how to have better boundaries about, what behavior I will and won't accept, and that it's actually okay to have some more self-regard and actually think of yourself a bit more highly than the way people may have conditioned you to feel in the past, or maybe how a parent or your family or even a relationship has made you feel for a very long time. I think it's very important for us to see that this is long-term conditioning that can be unlearned, but the realization that you've been conditioned a certain way is quite daunting, and it's scary, and it's like, wow, how am I going to deal with all of this? So knowing that there's other people who have done that, gone through it, come out the other side, that's like, whew, a breath of fresh air. So
No, yeah, because a lot of people are I think people seem to think they're just they can't relate to anyone that's gone through it as well. Like, they might be going through something, and because they're not really reaching out, they sort of seem that it's just themselves, and they sort of block out the chance of others um, sort of sharing the same thing that they're going through as well. And it'd be good if
yeah.
more people were open. And it's hard. It's hard. It's not easy at all. But if more people were able to sort of look around and be more open to see, what you're doing as well, and sort of, okay, sweet. So there is other people like me. There is other people that are going through what I'm going through, and then it can make it much easier for you to go through something, especially if there's someone else that's been going through something that's relatable.
Mm-hmm.
So but so so with what you're doing, has there been any stories or anything you could share that from that you could share since you've been doing sort of the one-on-one coaching, or sort of the stuff you've been putting up on your Instagram? Have you got any messages from people that have sort of hit you in the heart, or you would like to share it all?
Mm-hmm. I think the common and most reoccurring thing for everyone that comes to my page and talks to me is the relief that they feel knowing that it's okay to be vulnerable. Like, it's okay to say, I don't like that happened, and actually voice that opinion about it. Because the thing when you have been maybe abused or been in a terrible situation where you felt like you have been invalidated or your pain hasn't been acknowledged properly, the fact that you can actually just say, this thing happened to me and I don't like it. People have been holding on to these things for their whole entire lives, going, oh, I thought that I just had to carry that forever. And I just thought that, that was just something that I had to accept. And yeah, there's the mental health community likes to talk about acceptance as a way of finding healing. And yes, there is a level of acceptance that has to help us navigate that way. But I like to tell a lot of my clients and a lot of people that come to me and ask questions about this stuff, they like to try and jump from I am feeling all of this horrible pain to acceptance, when we kind of have to go through all of the hurdles in between to get to that point of feeling like we're okay again. And sometimes that means addressing the thing that we went through. Sometimes that means facing it head on, or maybe that means facing it with the therapist. Maybe that means doing some personal development around it. Maybe that means just actually admitting that it happened. Some people are in denial that something even happened, or maybe they've been gaslit their whole lives to believe that something hasn't happened. And that's the case a lot of the time. I'll find with people who have experienced things like sexual abuse, they've been gaslit to believe, well, like a lot of the times by the perpetrator, if they confront them, that never happened. So they just go, okay, I'll push it down. I'll just pretend like it never happened. And then, the police, for example, gaslight them and say, well, are you sure? Are you sure that really happened? And then they push it down even more. So it's like, that's just one small, very, very small example of how you can push things down. But like, say you're being bullied in the playground and the teacher, the kid starts fighting you and you start fighting back, and the teacher sees you fighting back. That one occurrence where the teacher comes in and goes, you're in trouble because you were fighting them, but you're like, no, they started it. That can cause like a big rift in that feeling of sense of self that causes like you to feel confident and certain. And when you start questioning yourself over and over again due to experiences in your life and what people say, it makes you go, well, maybe that didn't happen, or maybe it wasn't that important, or maybe it wasn't that bad, or maybe it wasn't whatever. And when we do that, we're actually denying ourselves from healing from the thing, even if it may not have happened as we thought it did. Just addressing the fact that it happened and going, you know what, I'm going to go and try and find help by telling someone or by writing it down, or maybe I'm going to go search and, find out if this is a thing, if this is like common out there in the world. Because for my entire life, and this is very common for all of my clients and people that come to me, they didn't know that they were being abused or they were going through a situation like that until it was highlighted to them by an outside source. So my personal experience was, and I can like attribute and say thanks to the holistic psychologist for this, because when I was sick, I read a story about how she had decided to go no contact with her family because they were basically just taking so much from her. They were treating her badly, and they were being prejudiced about her beliefs and decisions in her life. And that was a shock to me. I was like, this woman who was like very, she's an expert psychologist talking about her personal experiences, is now telling, her community what she has personally done. That actually was the first thing in my life to give me enough strength to go, wow, I can do something like that if I wanted to, even though I felt guilty for thinking that maybe it might be a good idea to take some space from my family because my family had told me it would be the wrong thing to do. Being able to go into social media and go, oh, well, look at this person who has made a scary decision. Maybe if I make that decision, it will help me too. I did it and it helped me. And I was like, wow, the power of like social media in that way, to see someone else's story and how it benefited their life and maybe make that decision myself. It was like a breath of fresh air, being able to go, well, I can take back my life if I want to. I can take back my boundaries. Like I can do what I want. I can be who I want to be. Because I had been told my entire life that I was a bad person, that I was violent, that I was angry, that I was just like my horrible father. who was a violent man. You know, I was just conditioned to believe I was a bad person. But what the reality was that I was not acknowledged, not validated. I was told to be the adult in the parent situation, was taught to look after my entire family, that my feelings and my emotions were to be pushed down. And there's a lot of people out in the world who are like that, and they're in situations that they can't get out of, unfortunately, because they're obligated to look after everyone else. But then something like what happened to me happens when you get sick. You get sick. And I got physically sick, but it doesn't just happen physically. It happens mentally, it happens spiritually, it happens emotionally, all over the world. And people go, oh, you know what? I didn't eat well enough and I was working too hard. But what about all of the situations we've been through that we haven't acknowledged? And I think it's very, very important to do that. So that was a huge part of my healing journey, to acknowledge that, yes, that happened to me, to share it to others, to be acknowledged from the outside world, people coming in and going, you know what, I experienced that too. It's like, wow. So I was validated. They were validated. We're all healing together. It's a very healing community space, and I love it. And I don't like it when people come in and try and invalidate other people's experiences, because there are bullies that come in and try and do that sometimes. And I will point them out and I'll just be like, look, you can't do that here, because this is not that kind of space at all. And it's not on, because I'm teaching people how to deal with that. So I have to stand up to that as well.
Oh, awesome. Thanks for sharing that. That was really good to listen to. But what are you currently doing at the moment for your mental health? Is there sort of a thing that you do every day or every week that helps your mental health?
Yes, for sure. And that was a big part of the healing process as well. I'm sure that even you would agree that having routine is a very, very important part of staying well.
Agree.
And, yeah. And I was never taught that as a child. I basically was just modeled that you just basically wake up and just wait for the storm to hit and figure out what happens next. So, and then I would kind of get, what's the word? I would get into trouble. I would get apprehended, is that a word? I would get into trouble for basically not having my head screwed on, even though I wasn't being taught the skills to do so. So when I got sick, I decided I'm going to figure out what are all the ways that people look after themselves. I'm going to start reading about them all. So I tried lots of different things, and I recommend that everyone does this if they haven't ever been able to establish a good routine. Try lots of different things, but don't do things that are going to put you into a negative mental state. So if you know that you need to exercise, but you know that getting up at 5 a.m. is going to make you angry, then don't do it. I think there's a level of discipline that we can have with those things. Yeah. Put that discipline towards going and exercising at some point today. But if it's going to put you in a negative mental state, don't have that as part of your morning routine. A morning routine is really important to get you into a good mental state. And I tell all of my clients about building energy. It's the first thing that we do, because a lot of them come to me feeling very depleted. They feel burnt out, depleted, like they're exhausted. They're like, I don't even have the time to figure out what I need to do, let alone think about it. Or do it. So we basically start at the most basic point, is like stabilizing that grounded energy, where we get back to the point of feeling like we have the energy to give. So what would you do when you want to build energy? So you do things that are very natural, like you have extra sleep, hydrate more, make sure you're eating enough food. And sometimes that means, like, if you have a bad relationship with food, you could do the opposite of what you always do, which could be something like trying out fasting, or trying out a new health regime that's not going to put you in a negative mental state, that's going to make you feel good. So, for example, when I started my health routine after being on chemo, I noticed that taking like 10 supplements in the morning, I just hated because I felt it made me feel like crap. That's just a small thing. So I just made some small tweaks to make it easier for me. Now, every morning when I wake up, I'm like actually excited to do my routine. That completely changed my entire life because if I'm excited to do my routine, the routine always makes me feel good. That makes me have a good day in return. And then also implementing an evening routine as well. I think that's really important. An evening routine where you wind down and you kind of just reflect on what you're most grateful for in the day, because gratitude has helped me get through a lot of really, really hard times. And I'll also teach my clients a technique called reframing, which I use in NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming. I use that as a technique in my coaching to teach people how to use better language to talk to themselves and to relate to the world. So that's how we kind of condition ourselves to change negative beliefs and negative language and things that we, and values, things that we value that may not be actually helping us. So we start to shift those things, and reframing is a massive one because there are a lot of things that will happen to us in life. We'll have a lot of bad experiences thrown at us in the course of a lifetime. But what's most important is to understand that there is a thing called cause and effect. And if we are at the effect of everything that happens to us, we're basically becoming the victim. And we can find a lot of reasons and justifications for why everything happens to us. And that keeps us in such a stuck state. So I teach people reframing. That puts us from effect into cause. And that's not to say that something didn't happen to us, because that can create a whole, part of who we are. Like, for example, cancer. That's the perfect example of cause and effect. I could say I'm at the effect of cancer. Now I've got a chronic health condition from it. And now, oh, my life is so hard because, I'm tired and blah, 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 blah. And this happened because, I was born with this mutation in my genes. And do you see how I'm at the effect of everything that happens to me? Whereas being at cause is going, yeah, okay, I got cancer, fair enough. But now I'm feeling much better and I have a lot more energy. And I'm actually feeling 100% better than I was before because I've changed my diet, I've changed my routine, I've learned so much about myself. Now I feel fearless, I'm not afraid of my health. See how I've actually reframed that from being the victim into being like, I'm so empowered now. Look at how it's changed my life for the better. It's a really powerful technique to use. And people can say, yeah, you're kind of faking it in a way, which is like, good, that's excellent. Let's fake it until we make it, because that's the way the brain works. We can, in a way, without getting too woo here, quantum physics talks about how there's a million possibilities for anything to be possible. And the law of attraction talks about how we can manifest our reality with what we think. So I believe that if we can reframe what happens to us, regardless of anything that happens to us, if we can find a way to find empowerment from it, then we can find a purpose in life from anything that happens. So yeah, I could say I got abused as a child and all these things happened to me, but now I've reframed it, and that's the most powerful thing to me and the most important thing to me. I'm not going to be the victim and at the effect of what happened to me when I was a child. I'm going to be at the cause now, and I'm going to help other people because I've learned a way to get through it. So I'm going to pass that on to others so that they can be at cause too and not be at the effect of what's happening to them. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, that makes total sense. So with like you're saying reframing and stuff, is there anything you could give to the audience, some advice, any advice you could give to better their mental health every day, including like reframing and sort of starting your day well? Is there anything particular you could share?
Yeah, for sure. A lot of tips that I give to people, especially if you can't get to therapy and you're struggling with your mental health, it's really important to remember that emotion is energy in motion. So regardless of how you're feeling right now, the emotion is going to move. It's going to go through. It's going to end. There's going to be a beginning. There's going to be a peak. There's going to be an end. So as long as we can get through the emotion, we can find a way through the situation. So my mentor, Matt Cutling, he's taught me a lot of what I know. He loves to say that when our emotion goes up, our intelligence goes down. And it's very true. When your emotion is high, you're in fight or flight and you're going, oh my God, what's going on? And you can't think clearly. So your intelligence goes way down. You're going to do silly things like make rash decisions, and you're going to, maybe lash out at someone because you're frustrated, or you're going to like fumble when you're trying to focus or something like that, because you're not thinking clearly. So when we look at the emotion as being this thing that goes up and down, we understand that it was always going to go in and out. When we get to the end of the emotion, we can bring in our logical mind, and then we can talk ourselves through it. So what I like to advise people to do is, if you're feeling a certain way, try and feel it as much as you can to the point where it's going away, because the intensity of the emotion can only get to one point where it's going to start to drop off again. So say you feel like you want to cry and you swallow your tears, you feel a lump in your throat because you're literally swallowing back something you should be letting out. So let the cry out. If it means going for a shower, or going for a walk, or say you're feeling really angry, and instead of letting your wrists go into fists and shaking, go scream at the ocean, or go underwater, go jump in the bath and scream under the water, or grab a pillow and scream into the pillow, or grab a punching bag and punch that anger out. Because the more we release those emotions, the more we can gain stability over them. The more we understand that they're always going to go beginning, middle, end, then we can go, okay, there's going to be an end to this. Then when we can understand that, the next part is doing the next step, which is getting through it. So something's happened to me. I felt the emotion. I've gotten through the emotion. Now I need to talk about it. So if you don't have a therapist or someone to talk about it, get yourself a journal, one that you're willing to throw away, and write down literally everything you can think of about this situation until it's absolutely no longer in your brain anymore. Because if something's still circulating in your brain, your unconscious mind thinks it's something that you need to think about. Until you let it out on paper, the unconscious mind doesn't know that it's out. Even if it's typing or if it's talking to someone, that's why therapy is really good, because we're letting something out that we've been holding in for a long time. But writing it down, record it, even just, record it on your phone. Once it's out, it's no longer going to feel as heavy anymore. Once it's out, notice what's left. If there's like a feeling of like, okay, this is still really affecting me in a bad way, then yes, you can go and get some help, some extra help to deal with it. And there's support. There's not just support with therapists, but there's support with people online who are giving mental health tips like this. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with that, as long as they, give their disclaimers that they're not giving therapy advice to every individual person. These are just general advice tips. They usually do work, breathing exercises, understanding how when we get really stressed out, we tend to hyperventilate. And if we hyperventilate, oxygen goes too high in the body, which makes us actually feel more stressed out. So even knowing that you can have a paper bag to breathe in, which increases the level of carbon dioxide and actually makes you feel more relaxed. So people think that they need to breathe more when they're stressed out. Sometimes you actually need to hold your breath for a little while or breathe into a bag. So there's nothing wrong with breathing less sometimes. I like to tell my clients, like, if you're feeling agitated and you're noticing that you're feeling more agitated by breathing, then slow your breathing down and make sure that your out breath is longer than your in breath. These are quick fix tips, but the long-term tips would be to maintain a relationship with yourself by talking to yourself through journaling or through affirmations, such as, when you look in the mirror, say, I love you and you're amazing and you're successful, rather than looking at yourself and saying, you're worthless and if you've suffered and life is so crap. Because we can get into times in our lives when we're doing that. So have a relationship where you're talking to yourself, journaling, affirmations, have a good routine, and know the quick fixes that are going to help you get through those times. Because remember, emotion is energy in motion. It's always going to start, have a middle, a peak. When we get through the peak, it's all downhill from there. It's really, really easy. Downhill is in we're on the bike and we're cruising downhill.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
I know that downhill from there means a bad thing, right? Yeah.
So no, thanks for sharing that, because there's a couple of things that you did say. They are things that I have sort of changed and have started doing, that I have heard that are better for your health. And breathing, when you're in that get into that, start breathing slowly and control your breathing at some points where you sort of feel like you're gonna get out, sort of go out of control and lose your breath. And so I do that a lot when I'm not in the right mental space. Sort of just breathe and just focus on my breathing. And I try and when I can try and like at the start of my day, I'll do a lot of breathing, and then try and sort of yoga sort of stuff, do some stretching and sort of get my body and mind ready for the day. So that's sort of something that I've
that's exactly
doing.
Right to add to that.
But also
to add to that, movement is a huge one. I completely forgot. Movement is a massive one that I wanted to add, because like you said, moving your body gets your blood pumping, which also brings more oxygenated blood to the brain, which also helps to change how you think, how you breathe, everything like that. So music, if you're kind of like, I'm having a slumpy day, turn on some music and just jump around and just, get in the vibe of the music, or do some stretching, or even just go for a walk and get some fresh air, get some sun, all those kinds of things that are really good, like wholesome, good things that you underestimate are actually really amazing and have a huge effect if you're feeling really emotionally distraught and you need something like a quick fix. They're very effective.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. A lot of people, when they're in that mental state, they sort of just, it's sometimes it is good to have your own sort of space by yourself and sort of think about your situation. But it's good to, get outside and sort of get that fresh air, the sun, and just walk and just freshen yourself up. But also with what you were saying, with your emotions, saying what am I trying to say now? So hey, you're saying how what am I trying to say? I'm losing my words. Okay. So actually dealing with what actually acknowledging what you are dealing through, instead of sort of passing it, sort of going, oh, it is what it is, sort of thing like that. It's a thing that I'd honestly say that I used to do a lot. And I sort of I think it was sort of a thing that would say I was passed on to me from, like I would say, like my parents are really good people and stuff like that, but I think it is a thing that I sort of got from them, sort of just deal with it. It is what it is. Just deal with it. And the truth about it is that you gotta acknowledge that it's not okay, but it's also something that that you should be able to take the chance to try and make a change with how you'll put yourself in different situations, try different things, like you're saying earlier. So yeah, that's the thing that because I'd used to just, okay, yep, just deal with it, it's okay, you'll be right. It's And so now that I've sort of changed the situation, it is still something that I'm working on, acknowledging that it's not okay, and sort of changing that perspective. It sort of changed my mental health for the better. So that's been a good thing as well. But
Yeah.
so with your like so how long have you, so 2019 did you say you had breast cancer, sorry?
Yeah, January 2019, I got diagnosed.
So how has that hurdle been for you for the past 2 years?
It was a big one because I was it was something that I was actually really afraid of before, because I was a little bit like obsessive about natural health and things like that before I got diagnosed, and I was actually quite a non-believer in chemo and things like that, and I was trying my best to be really strict with my health, and I was like trying to eat well, exercise, do the things, but at the same time wasn't dealing with my stress. So what I would do to manage the stress would be smoking cigarettes and drinking alcohol and that. And then I got sick, and I sick was the fact that I hadn't dealt with my emotions. So when I decided to start dealing with my emotions, I no longer felt like I needed cigarettes and alcohol and things like that to deal with stress. And now, although I'm still dealing with some health conditions after chemo and things like that, my mental health has completely done a huge turnaround, because I realized how much the stress levels were affecting my physical health. And the more stress that I have, the more physical issues I have. So I just went, you know what? There's I can't deny that there's such a physical link to stress. And so since then, I've been not only just doing the physical things like, eating better and moving and things like that, just making sure that there's no stress in my life. And that's been the hugest part of it. And that has had the biggest impact on me feeling the best that I am now. So at the moment, I'm feeling good. I've been 2 years cancer-free. I've got scans coming up again soon, but I don't even worry about any of that. The person that I was before was terrified of cancer. And now I'm like, well, if cancer comes again, it comes again, that's just life. That's what happens, and I'll deal with it and I'll find a way through it in that way. But I'm so relaxed now. But some people might go, wow, how can you think of it like that? But I'm like, just so I fully believe that life is just a miracle, and we're so lucky to be alive.
Yep.
That, whatever moments that you have in this life, don't take them for granted. Just live it, live it, live it. And if God wants to take you away now, then that's what's going to happen. But as long as you live your life, you can't turn around and say, I regret anything. That's my most important lesson from all of that.
That's why, because you just got to live in the moment, and that's a problem. People just worry about things that may never come. But the thing is, you sort of just got to live by the moment and just worry about what's happening. At this point of time, because your head's just going to be rambling about just things. Oh, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if that? And it sort of gets you in that bad mental space, because your head's just going all over the place.
Exactly. And the hardest thing at the moment in the world is to live in the present. Like, with everything that's going on right now, it is so hard for everyone to do that. And just being mindful is so hard, because you're like, oh, well, what's going to happen with lockdowns and restrictions, and what's going to happen with are we going to have vaccinations to go everywhere, and are we going to be able to travel, and what's going to happen with the children and their studies, and people thinking about all of these problems will be their minds will be overloaded right now with anxiety. So the most important thing to do right now is just go, whatever's happening right in front of me right now is what's happening, and that's how I'll handle it. Anything else outside of me, I will deal with the most compassion that I have. But we also always have to focus back on self and go, I need to look after me first. And that was a huge lesson that I learned. I can't always put everybody else's needs first. There's a level of, selfishness that is healthy that we need to, like, yes, there are problems going on out inside in the world, but we cannot help anyone else in the world unless we are feeling healthy and have enough energy to do so. So always remember to be focusing back on, like, okay, how can I build energy? And then if I build energy, that's going to give me the power to help the world. And then, we're bouncing off the walls and we're overflowing with love and things like that, rather than the opposite of what we were, where we're feeling depleted and scared and things like that. Focusing our energy on what is most important to us will help to guide our passion as well.
Oh, sweet. So what do you believe with mental health? What has been a big cause of it being like causing depression and that area of stuff? What do you believe has been a big cause of that?
I would say, just from, like, I couldn't say, the actual cause of all of it.
Yeah.
But from my experience, from what I have learned from the people that I deal with, that people will deal with long-term mental and emotional problems if they don't deal with things that they have suppressed from their past. So be that's like any kind of trauma that we haven't yet dealt with, that can cause a lot of emotional and mental problems. But I guess if I could put like an overall bubble on it, it would be like Matt Catling again likes to say, if we're I don't know if he said this, but he told me this, if we're living in the future, if we're worried about the future too much, we can have anxiety. And if we're looming too much on the past, it can cause a depression. So basically, in a nutshell, like if we're feeling sad all the time, it's usually because we're reflecting upon things that may have not gone how we wanted them to in the past. So finding a way to move through them in the past, like those things in the past, will help us to no longer dwell on them so much. And move through them means finding acceptance. And like I said, finding acceptance isn't just going, I accept it. It means moving through all the pain and all of the learnings and all of the personal development that you need to go through to find true acceptance about it. And then the opposite side is like worrying all the time and having anxiety. That's too much dwelling in what's potentially going to happen. And we don't know. We really don't know. We don't have any control over what's potentially going to happen. So there's an essence of letting go of control and surrendering. And that's very, very scary to some, because letting go and going, you know what, I don't know what's going to happen in the future. People have plans for the future. People have goals. Sometimes life doesn't go the way we want it to, and that can be very daunting. But coming to some sort of acceptance that life is just a ride, and we really don't know how it's going to turn out. And if we keep trying to control it, it's going to make us unhappy. If we come to some sort of acceptance about that, life is so much more easy, in my opinion. So to answer the question, I think too much dwelling in the past and the future and not being present enough. That's what I think.
Oh, sweet. Yeah. So before we end this podcast, that's really all the questions I had for you. So is there anything you'd like to share about, is there anything else you'd like to share before we end this episode?
Just a message to anyone out there listening that regardless of what you're going through, no matter what happens to you, you are not alone. in what you have experienced. There's at least one other person in the world who has gone through what you have gone through. And there is an amazing thing that we are on right now called the internet, and that connects people all over the world. And you will find, like, you know, one of the biggest things for me when I got cancer, when I went through cutting off my parent, when I realized some of the abuse, I went to communities online, on Facebook, for example, and I looked up, you know, breast cancer group, and I spoke to other people who went through that. That's the biggest part that I want people to know. Like, there are other people out there who are looking for someone else to connect with, to share a little part of the burden with them, because when you have a problem, like when you share a problem, you're halving it in a way. And when you share it again, you're halving it again. And you no longer have to carry the burden of that. So the less we feel alone in the world, I feel the better the world will be. The more we come together and we realize how connected we are in so many of our experiences, that, you know, you may feel like I'm the only person in the world that's had something like this happen to me, or I'm the only person in the world that feels like this, or thinks this way, or believes this thing. It's not true. There are so many other people out there in the world just like you, and they're waiting for you to find them. So you're not alone. That's the biggest message I want to tell everyone out there.
Oh, sweet as. So is there anywhere you'd like to promote, something you'd like to promote, or anywhere people you'd like to share where people can find you, say your Instagram or anything like that?
Yeah. I hang out mostly on Instagram at Heal the Mum Wound. So that's HealTheMumWound on Instagram. I don't really, I'm working my way up to the other platforms, but I mostly post there. So you can come message me there, ask me about my coaching services, or read my content. I'm starting to make more long videos, talking about how we can spot the signs of manipulation easier, which helps people to feel more empowered, especially going into situations like relationships or new work situations, or standing up to their bullies, which is most important.
Well,
Thank
sweet
you.
as. Thanks for joining this episode. I really appreciate it. Like, this was one of my favorite. I'll be honest, one of my favorite so far. It was really good to hear what you had to say.
Thank you
Yeah,
so
about the
much.
mental health space. But I'd actually be open to do this again sometime in the future again.
For sure.
Because this was great. But yeah, thanks again for joining, and yeah, have a good one, eh?
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Okay, sweet as. See ya.
Bye.